Hello, welcome to the channel and thanks for watching. So in this video I'm going to take you through the unboxing of the psy-gheists and piscean specters ready for House delaque, go through the House of Shadows book and also go through the gang tactic cards as well. If you're not interested in unboxing the models, go to the 4:30 mark and that's where the book starts. But first of all, we'll crack on with getting into these figures. Initial impressions of the box set when I first saw it launch was this is an expansion set done right. Yes, you've got some basic humans in there that kind of match the gang with different equipment, but then you go into that prospect piece with the weird servo harness and you think, oh, this is good, getting different. Then the little snakes coming out of the ground, you think, yes, this is nice. And then that crazy piscean spectre thing that is just a complete departure from the gang. And that to me is what an expansion should be. It should be little bits to add on that look similar to the gang, but then something very visually different that isn't like what you've already got. And I think they've fallen down, especially with Redemptionist release recently, where to me they just released a separate gang that wasn't in my mind an expansion, but I think this is doing it right. So in the box you get two identical sprues. I wasn't sure that was going to be the case with that piscean spectre, because I assumed that it would be one sprue because they only show one of these models, but obviously it is two identical sprues. But that shows how much of a good job they must have done with the extra parts you put onto these bodies, because actually they don't look like repetition of body parts and figures. So really nice sprue, look really well cast as usual, fairly packed in. One thing I've noticed is the numbers are scattered all over the place like they are now because they're making the best use of that sprue space. So look, really nice looking kind of sprues. It definitely feels like there's going to be extra parts left knocking around on these when we're done. And again, lovely little bits of terrain in there. So the building process, I put this on my Instagram, so if you don't follow me on Instagram, check that out on Adam's Hobby Stuff. So I do post some different things on there that I show on here, but for now let's take a look at the completed models. So this is the first of the nacht ghouls, which is your new champion style. Really nice samurai inspired sword there. And what's particularly nice, I think, with the same sculpt, you build the option at nacht ghoul with the claws, and they are different enough to make you not instantly realise they are the same pose. So I really like how they've done that. Moving on to the exciting ones, the psy-gheists. So, I mean, what a glorious model. Absolutely fantastic. A couple of points to note when you are building it. Very tricky to get them to stand and balance properly. You are going to need something to hold that, or hold it yourself for a while it sets. I've gone for quite an upright pose. Just kind of liked how it looked. But obviously you can do a lot of angles, but if you do, it's going to take some gluing. Another point, the chest piece here. Terrible instruction fail by Games Workshop, because when we look here, there is zero mention of what that chest piece is. Never shows you sticking it on. It's number 20 for your reference, but just a slip that again they really shouldn't be making, given their experience. But like, I understand these things do happen. Slightly frustrating though. And here's the other psy-gheist. Again, a beautiful pose, cowled, hooded kind of robe there, and holding this, and then the worms, or psychoteric worms as they're called, I believe. You've got the two bursting out the ground there. Again, really nice little models. Right, and then the big boy, the piscean spectre. Again, huge model, absolutely glorious, very Matrix inspired. Really nice. Important to note as well, I've done moulded bases that I make myself. I do all my gangs on these style of bases. Obviously you could use the normal ones, but there you go, lovely model again on there. Now just to look at the sprues, I guess is always worth looking at the end, see what spares we get. You do get a number of extra bits, and I did consider when making this that you do get the two body halves of that piscean spectre, and it would be an easy enough job to take these, cast them in blue stuff and make another one. But to be honest, I figured you're probably not going to use more than one per gang, but you know, it would be an option for you. But it gives you lots of spare parts, mostly body parts that but you could model some of this stuff onto another figure. You do get a spare the samurai style power sword, so that's very nice, and a few pieces of the terrain panels and things. So again, useful amount of spares to do some conversion work later on. Okay, so let's get into this. That's my first run through this book. So again, this will be first impressions. I'm bound to get rules wrong and say silly things, but bear with me. Starting off, like every Necromunda house book, with an idea of Necromunda showing you where Hive Primus is in relation to the rest of the world. And I really like how they keep that consistency through the book. You know, the entrance into these books is the same no matter what the book is. sense of consistency. And the thing that excites me about these books every time is the amount of background, and you really can get into the depth of, you know, what has formed your house. Lovely artwork. You can just flip through these books, and most of the Necromunda expansion books on just as an artwork piece are lovely. So House delaque, the House of Shadow, is commonly known as more unusual clan houses of Necromunda. So let's have a look. No defined home and no defined industrial role within Necromundan society. So they are, you know, the spies, the saboteurs, the assassins of the hive. So it's going to be really interesting. So a large amount of background, which I won't go into here. House of Shadow, very exciting. Full history of House delaque. It's obviously referencing the fact that these are the spy masters, that they don't use factories. Really looking forward to reading through this later. Ooh, he's had a nasty day. Psychoterica. So to outsiders, the connection the delaque have with each other is uncanny and natural to behold. The two delaque can seemingly communicate with each other with a look and draw others of their kind to their location without saying a word. So obviously going into psychic ability, and again that real difference of House delaque. So I really like the timelines that they put in these books. It gives you an idea of what's going on in the Underhive and on Necromunda, and how the gangs are forming at different times. So, you know, 549 millennia 37, so several thousand years before, sort of 40k set, civil war within House Hellmoyer raging. Delaque offer their assistance as assassins and spies. So it's sort of set in how many thousands of years their kind of use in the hive has been going. Really nice. I always love this. Legend of the Pisceans. So obviously the large new character we've seen. Long ago, an aquatic Xenostrain known as the Pisceans arrived on Necromunda. Where they came from or what brought to the hive world remains a mystery. So it said the Pisceans did not completely disappear. They sought refuge in the watery heart of the subterranean oceans far from the toxic surface seas. So that's interesting. Fashioned to cybernetic hunters known as piscean spectors. So adding a different bit of background. I really like the idea of that. Something, you know, secretive going on. Star Chamber, obviously taken from history, because the Star Chamber, for those of you that read, you know, Henry VII, Henry VIII, that was how they ruled the country. So obviously going that this must be their ruling chamber of people. Master of Shadows, very interesting. I'm really looking forward to reading this actually. Talking through the nacht ghouls, which is the newly introduced kind of figures we've seen, about their assassins, obviously their psychers, psy-gheists, that's the psychers we were saying about. So very exciting, going to be really interesting to read through all these. And again, going through house industries, where normally in most gang books it talks about what they make or produce, you know, the Eshers do lasguns, that kind of thing, but this is now saying information brokers and assassins. So yeah, we don't build anything in House delaque, we spy and we assassinate. Excellent. Again, this is very nice. That's a totally different style of sword to what we've seen, so going a bit more towards what you would call kind of Eastern Oriental, you know, Japanese kind of samurai style. It's quite interesting. House territories, giving you an idea of that. The deeps, most hivers know better than to delve too deep into the heart of Necromunda. So obviously these guys are delving into the heart of Necromunda, surrounded by horrors. Excellent. Going through various different enclaves and where the delaque are. Hive Mortis, and what really I find interesting in this new iteration of Necromunda, it's obviously been out for a few years now, is it's talking about the other hive cities, even the fallen hives, and giving some idea about what is, you know, going on, which I really like. Some gangs of legend, and I imagine if you were to look at this, compare it to the timeline we've seen before, it would tell you when that happened, so you could set your campaign at a different time of Necromunda, so you can, you know, go back into history, fight some of the battles, have different things going on, so I really like it. So this is what we're really here for, I suppose, the gang lists, because look, a lot of people don't like the background, I get that, but for me that kind of first 30 pages is the really exciting bit that I'm going to sit down and have a read. But I get it, some people don't want to know the background, just want to know how it works. So these first couple of pages look exactly the same as the other house books. Gives you how you found your gang, what you have to do, weapons and war gear, what you do if a leader dies. So that's all exactly the same as we've seen in a lot of other books. And now on to the breakdown of the characters. So the Master of Shadow, that's your leader. So I'll show you my model while we're going through this. So you've seen it on the photo at the start of the video, but this is my leader model. I build my gang basically starter sets, if that makes sense. So I'll build them as the instructions show, go into basics, and as the campaign progresses, I will change their equipment, their war gear. I'll convert the model, or I'll just buy another one in. So fairly basic leader figure, equipped, as you can see, with sort of standard equipment off the equipment list, which doesn't seem to have changed from here. What is interesting, so we've got all the gang hierarchy rules, how we group activates exactly the same, but we've got this psychoteric whisper. So when you add the delaque Master of Shadow to it, you can upgrade him to have both a psychoteric mastery and non-sanctioned psycho special rules. That's very exciting. And then obviously he can then start gaining psychic powers. So you can see where this gang is going to go. A lot of reference to psychic powers earlier on, and I think as we go through the rules, there's going to be a lot of psychic power abilities. So that's going to be quite interesting as we go through. New leader in here. So the rest are now the champions. This is the traditional original champion, the delaque Phantom. I use two different style of champions. One with the double knives, and just the rifle, and then one with a long rifle on here. There's a bit of a sniper hang back character. Now, if you like my colour schemes and what I'm doing on here, I'll link in the description down below how I've painted these. You can check that out as well if you want to do the same. More into the shadowy kind of stealthy scheme with the real grim looking injured skin, if we can get that to focus properly. So if you are interested, check that out. So again, it doesn't look like anything's particularly changed on the champions equipment list. Looks kind of the same, but we can make these guys psychers as well. So it's going to get very expensive. You do that 30 credits for each one, and we'll check the rules out when we get to it on the page 97. So again, looks like there'll be a lot of psychic ability in the gang, and obviously that can overwhelm psychic ability of other gangs. Normally you might only have one, so nullifying the psychic powers is going to get difficult for people. Okay, now we're on to the new champions, so the nacht ghouls. So if you remember, these are the two models we talked about here, and we'll check out what their equipment is. So close combat weapons, shiver sword, serpent's fangs. We'll check those out in a second. Again, same thing, group activation one, fairly similar, exactly the same. From the shadows. Okay, that's a new one. So it should be set up at the start of the battle. They may instead be placed to one side. At the start of any round after the first, before rolling for priority, a controlling player may set them up anywhere on the battlefield that isn't visible to fighters. So that's very useful, kind of infiltrating assassins fit in the background, and they can have psychic powers again. Very good. So let's have a look at what the shiver sword and serpent's fangs do. It's going to be some. Oh, look at that, spot on. Nearly. So again, the weaponry equipment there. So shiver sword, engagement ability +1. Interesting. Strength is +1, minus AP, it's good. Melee, yeah, parry, always useful. Being able to force the opponent to re-roll a hit, so that's always useful. Power can again be useful if you get that wound roll. And sever. Top of my head, can't remember what sever means. I'm sure you're all cursing me now because I can't. Again, love these rules, very useful in there. Wound roll reduces it to 0 wounds, no injury dice are rolled, instead he's dead out of action. Oh, excellent, right, there we go, very nice. And then serpent's fangs was the other weapon. Yep, 90 credits, so these had better be good for 90 credits. +2 strength, oh very nice. Melee paired, phase and rending, excellent. I do love rending if you manage to actually get the 6 on the wound, because that extra damage point, especially going against characters, which I guess these guys are for the assassination element, it means you could take a leader out if you get a lucky wound roll on that 6, so I quite like that. Okay, moving on to new Jews, or prospects as they're called. What's interesting is the prospects, when you look, statistically they're not champions, they've not got multiple wounds like that, but they are giving the most interesting equipment in the last few gang releases to the prospects, and I've found myself using prospects more and more and more kind of in the gang. So we'll check that one out. So these are obviously, as we've seen before, the two psy-gheists, so we'll check their equipment out. We've got Psychoteric Worm is an exotic beast, okay, that's a different one. And then Psychomancer's Harness, 110 credits, very interesting. Now, we've obviously got the promotion rule, we'll have going into your champions quicker. Psychoteric Mastery, we are Psychers, and then we'll take a look at what the personal equipment, what the harness and the worms do. Now the worms are obviously beasts, so we should have them somewhere fairly soon after, there we go, after the gang lists. So you activate them as beasts, that's fine. And psychoteric node. So when they use the weird power, you can use a worm to channel that power instead of coming from the character. So obviously a way of keeping the character safe, and these worms can burrow beneath the floor and pop up elsewhere. Could be very, very useful. Obviously that's the first glance at the rules, but I like the idea of that, extending your psychic ability whilst keeping yourself safe, probably hidden somewhere. Very useful. Okay, and let's go have a look for the harness. Should be somewhere. Sweet, Psychomancer harness, strange form of servo harness, move by +2 could be very useful when the fighter climbs, isn't halved, so climb up and down the ladder, that's great. Automatic equipped with paired psychomantic claws. We can only have 2, that's fine, so we don't know what psychomantic claws are, but again, movement wise very useful, unless obviously you're playing more of your zone mortalis, but when you're using Mechanicus, that could be very, very useful to get around really quick. Paired psychomantic claws, yeah, so very, again, +1 strength, melee, paired, yeah, so again, very useful at a lot of points, but could be very useful in the game, and adds that bit of difference to the gang when you're not always quite the same. So let's move on to the gangers. Now, a quick talk through my gangers. So again, built exactly as standard. We've put the web pistols and things on, but I've never got to the point in a campaign so far to use them. And built as standard with a mix of pistols and rifles where appropriate. So built again as a standard gang, and a nice mix of equipment is, very useful. So the delaques here don't get the psychic ability, so as you move down the gang they're getting sort of less useful. So we haven't spoke about actually the skill access that they get. Obfuscation is obviously a new skill set for the delaques. Again, what I've really liked about them, that when in all the different gangs and you're given a different skill set, it again varies the gang and makes it different to what you're playing against your opponent. So we'll check that out when we get there. Again, gangers, fairly standard. And then move on to the Juves. Again, promotion, they promote faster, they are the quick learners, so they're going to advance into being your champions and things later on. And with the same equipment list as before, don't get access to the obfuscation skills, which when we go back is going to be your masters and your champions. Again, my Juves, I keep all my Juves armor pistols, just feels like that's what they would be doing. Now I do start off, as you see here, this obviously is the Grav pistol, which isn't equipable with the Juve, but he's the one that I want to gear up to be the specialist, and he'll get it eventually. And we're quite open enough in our campaign that when we say that's an auto pistol, everyone's fine with it, and then when he gets promoted it will turn into the Grav pistol. As the gang characters now going on the rest of the books, we've seen this already, we've seen where the exotic beast section starts, and now they're dropping in the bounty hunters. And I really like that they do this in the books, and add different bounty hunters or scum characters or whatever. It seems to take them an awful long time though to release the models. But again, Calfixis, the ghost of Primus, House Delaque bounty hunter, a skinned face onto something lovely. See when that finally comes out. Again, cephalopod specters, we've seen these before, they've been in the game for quite a while. And then move into how you use hangers on and brutes, so no difference to the rules there. Again, psychoteric thrall, so here's a different hanger on that is a delaque special. So a gang with a psychoteric thrall can use it as a focal point when a friendly delaque fighter performs a weird power action, so just a different way of expanding that psychic ability. I like the idea of that, I really do. So that's a modelling thralls. Thralls are by their nature hidden in plain sight and often take the form of members from other clan houses. Are fantastic, so the modelling opportunities of this would be great. So imagine you could take a Goliath and say, here's my psychoteric thrall, basically troll the people that you're playing in your campaign, and then you could use, I suppose, some of the spares you get from the sprue, and then stick these on to that Goliath just as a subtle way of showing it's the thrall. I really like the idea that that's going to have to be done. Yeah. So we've seen this before, House Delaque Spikers. This was the, I suppose, psycho element before that was hinting, I guess, at the future of Delaque with all this psychic ability. So we've seen these. Obviously there's a model finally out for those. Whisper Merchant, okay. Any gang but 60 credits. delaque special at 30. And I'm sure this will be a Forge World model to be released later, but again, plenty of conversion opportunities. Very strange, interesting artwork there. Useful lies. Whisper Merchant may count the result of a single d6 roll 6 when taking the following actions. Scenario, choosing crews, random crew size applies. That could really be worth it. 30 creds isn't a lot. Yeah, okay. Gang Lookout, we've seen that before, but it's a different piece of artwork, so it's always nice to see them, you know, adding different things into the books. Rogue Docs, again, seen these before, can be very, very useful in a longer running campaign. Ammo Jacks, Dome Runners, we've seen these. Sloppers, we've seen these. Oh, interesting, another character. So Jägerloth, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, Master of Whispers, House Delaque, Bounty Hunter. Looks very Adeptus Mechanicus, that model. Really nice sort of cowl there. Again, a conversion opportunity if you don't want to wait for the official model to come out. Again, he's a psyker. Jägerloth is not wholly human anymore, perhaps not even corporeal. Okay, very interesting. Again, another one to worth reading through there. Okay, now we're into the big interesting model. So this obviously was kind of partly what drew me towards this delaque box as being something completely different. Not entirely sure it fits with 40k, and it's a bit matrixy, but I really like it. And they're classed as brutes. So you can use two. So again, conversion opportunity. You could take the body that you've had to the original one and do something very different with it, or cast up those arms. If you're interested in casting things up, actually, I've got a video on how you use blue stuff for casting pieces, so I'll link that below as well. And if you don't rush to build your model, you could make two out of the one set. So it's a 205 credit piece of equipment. Toughness 4, so not overly tough, but I imagine again, weird powers. You can have additional weird powers from the chosen psychoteric discipline right into the gang. Additional powers you can be purchased when you're added. So again, more abilities. So that's interesting. It's got carapace armor. It flies, moves freely between levels without restriction. Can never fall. It is a psyker. So again, one of these underground things where they said before, they take the brain and stick it in a mechanical construct. So again, I like that. During a campaign, you can get weird powers, same way as you can gain a primary skill. No, I like this. It's a psychic ability piece. It's reasonably tough, but not ridiculously tough. This is how they should build gangs on. Add things that are, going to be very useful, but they're not game dominating. There's always a temptation, especially in a lot of the things Workshop release, to kind of power creep, but this doesn't feel like power creep. It feels like something really different and interesting being added to the gang. So very, very nice. On to the ambots. I've seen this before, every gang can have them. If you haven't got an ambot, get one for one of your gangs or other. Don't use them for every one, or I don't particularly, but I use mine for my Cawdor. Really, really nice, great fun to play, very, very tough, and just, a bit of fun to add into your campaign. Servitors, or Servitor Ogryns rather. So again, Ogryns, again, beautiful models, loads of options at how you can build them. Again, we've seen these before, very useful. And now onto some hired guns. Now, hired gun wise, I don't often use many hired guns. The campaign was involved in before lockdown happened. I had a couple of hive scum in my gang, but mostly because the territory granted me two of them. Again, lovely models that you can get from Forge World, but what I like about these again is a great conversion opportunity to do some different things. Nice cheap models, bounty hunters. Again, this is the same as in every other book, but it's nice to have them in each different book. It's a house agent, and something different that comes in every different gang book. So let's see what we're going to be getting here. Before we get there, that looks like a massive psychoteric worm that's obviously big enough to eat people. That could be cool. So this is obviously what you're petitioning. So you petition, you don't hire it. Effectively, the more experience your gang gets, the less chance there is of it coming to help you. So again, quite interesting. I really like the idea of that giant mechanical construct worm that's going to eat people. Fantastic. And then alliance rules, again, same rules, just repeating what we've seen in the books, but makes sense again to have this shown. Crazy, well, that's a small child that's been servitized with a mechanical arm carrying his gun. You got to love Necromunda. So again, allies of House Delaque, and you can do, what says there, gang for any alliance they wish, but it's with the Iron Guild and Psy Syndicate the majority of House Delaque gangs choose to work with, furthering the agenda. So again, a lot of psychic ability, there's the drawbacks and things there, and what is the Psy Syndicate? It says here, few greater crimes that come under the concealment or trafficking of psychers, so it doesn't stop recidivists from dealing in these powerful individuals. So I'm going to really look forward to reading this about what the psychic power is. House Ty, again one of the noble houses that the clan works with. Now House Ty has been mentioned in previous books before, but not into any massive depth. Looking at this, very oriental, double-headed eagle. So yeah, on Myodo Coven, so I think we're going again slightly oriental in the background here, which is quite interesting. Mind-locked weird, one of the things you can get to allow with your gangs. Looking at this, so yeah, very, very psychic. It's going to be a very interesting gang to play when we've got this done. So House Ty on Myodo Coven. So 1,000 of telepathic psychers and employ the Imperial House. Obviously this must be what's left into House Ty. Again, very oriental theme, very exciting. This could be a brilliant model set when they do release these, because again, Forge has done some very good work there. That is a fantastic piece of artwork. Again, this is going to take a fair while to read through and learn these about what, the powers that these characters can use that you add in. So, past the ally section into the additional rules. House favours. Okay, really interesting. Subplots, I do like the subplots when you do them. And again, it's a chance just to get a pack of cards if you can track down the originals. Obfuscation skills. Obviously you get a massive skill list in the original book, but it is nice having the different skill charts in different gangs, again just as a way of differentiating them, so really quite nice. Psy-touched, may reroll willpower checks when attempting to activate weird powers. Very useful. Yeah, I like that. Fake out when making a roll to determine the scenarios in a pre-battle sequence. The fighter's gang may roll 3d6 rather than usual 2. One of these dice must be discarded. Okay, so just some different rules. Obviously we won't go massively into these, but interesting. Here we go. Madness, delusion, very aptly named powers, and darkness. So let's just pick one. Penumbral mirror. Choose one enemy fighter and one friendly fighter that are both currently within 5 inches of the psyker. Immediately move the chosen friendly fighter to any other point within 5 inches of the enemy fighter. Chosen friendly fighter may even move into base contact with chosen enemy fighter. So again, that's a quite interesting power. Again, it'll be good to look through these and decide what we're doing. I'm actually really looking forward to getting involved with the delaque, with the psychic powers. And terrain, another modelling opportunity. If you've watched on my channel, you know that I like doing objective markers, little terrain pieces and whatever. And it's really nice being able to do some different terrain. You place it before any fighters get deployed in the battlefield. You can place it in your own deployment area, or if you're allowed to, you can stick it in no man's land in between. So again, just a nice modelling opportunity, and it's just something different to do. Then we go through what this terrain and these traps are. So yeah, definite modelling opportunity. Might have to do some of that for the channel. If you guys are interested in me doing that, stick a comment down below and ask for it, and I'll give it a go. So House Delaque scenarios, and just something different to get into. If you do a big campaign you've played for a while, you will do the same scenarios again and again. So very nice when you can introduce a different scenario into that kind of campaign setting. Claim victory attacker must place 5 spying devices on the battlefield. So again, fitting into that character of the house. Cauldron of Lies. I love the titles of these. So yeah, very nice. And on to the artwork. Now when it comes to the artwork in the back, well, it's inspiration. Actually my colour scheme is very similar to this, as you can see, whereas I've done silver around the edging, they've done kind of the gold edging, so similar, little bits of difference. I've not gone for the bright, the greens and reds. I've kept mine much more muted, fitting in with what I think, I want mine to look a bit more sort of stealthy. So the standard models, again going through the new characters, the nacht, ghouls and psy-gheists, again fitting standard, fairly standard into the colour schemes. Some very interesting blue skin going on the slave ogre in there, so that's, yeah, I like that. And then into your weaponry, that again we've seen before, but with the slightly different. Again, you can see where the oriental kind of aspect was coming from, probably equipment supplied by House Ty. Very nice. And into your weapon rules and your armour and your descriptions for weapon traits, etc. at the back, which we see in every book. And then some gang tactics. Good point to talk about the gang tactics cards. I did pick these up as well as part of the release. Get in. So some blank gang cards supplied. Again, just nice to have the gang symbol on there and give you something a little bit different. Now, you don't have to have the gang tactics cards because, again, they're all in here and you can roll for these things, but it is nice sometimes to have these available on the edge of the board just as that quick reminder. Confusion, traps, whisperer. So again, all titled to fit in with what this background of the gang is. So again, something nice to have, but again, you know, you've got them in there fully available if you don't want to pick up the cards. And then at the end, back to the artwork, and that's the book. I hope you enjoyed my rambling through the book there. Look, not massively thorough, but gives you my initial sense of what it's all about. I showed you the figures, so I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, and you want to check around and keep seeing what I do on the channel, like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz, and I hope I'll see you next time.